What I realized in the fight against climate change, the fight against environmental justice issues is that it's not a one-person battle. We all have a very intricate part in helping to save this planet. Because we all share this one planet, we all have a social, economic, and environmental responsibility to become better stewards, right? And that means considering running that water. Turn that water off when you're not utilizing it, whether you're taking a shower or a bath. Turn off those lights when you're outside of that room to conserve what you're actually not utilizing, because that's what makes your footprint larger, your carbon footprint larger.
Hello and welcome back to the Growth Motivator Live. I'm Dr. Lisa L. Campbell, your host. Today, I am honored to have with me Victoria Wilson, aka the Queen of Green. Now, low key, you got that green on, but next time I need you to have a little blue and gold on just for the culture.
You know what? I do wear my blue and gold, but the first day that I made a final decision to embrace the brand identity of the Queen of Green was after speaking with a marketing guru, and he told me that when you're guerrilla marketing, you always have to wear your brand colors. And since that day, which is now marking 5 years, I've always had on a touch of green.
I love it.
The
I
blue
love
and gold
it.
is in my heart.
I love it. I love it. Every day. Every day.
Every day.
So, can you tell our listening audience about your background? I know you are an environmental scientist. Some people probably don't even know what an environmental scientist is. So, tell our listening and viewing audience about just all things Queen of Green.
Wow, that's so compact and loaded, and I'm still really just developing that identity as the Queen of Green. But I'm a Chicago native, born and raised here in the city of Chicago on the south side by way of Uptown. And, I'm just a city girl who loves science. And so when I moved back south, I ended up going to Chicago High School for Agricultural Sciences. And that's where I fell in love with science for real. We learned about agriculture, horticulture, livestock management, and it just flourished into something I never expected. And being a girl from the south side of Chicago, I lived next to one of the largest waste management facilities all that time, not knowing it was an industrial corridor in the south side of Chicago. And so I went on to get my bachelor's of science from Lincoln University, which is the Harvard of the Midwest. And they were like, hey, Victoria, we would love for you to be our pilot student for the bachelor's in environmental science. And I was like, okay, what does that look like? So that was all hands-on curriculum with my professors and adjunct professors and research-based capstone studies from environmental policy down to just soil and water quality, which allowed for me to just travel the nation and do research with Iowa State University, University of North Carolina, from everything from landfills to solid waste management. And that's ultimately what cultivated my beginning academic career, which now is a part of my company's core structure and focus.
So for the people who are like, I still don't have a clue what she's talking about, break it down so that individual that maybe is in 5th grade, 6th grade, 8th grade, they understand what it is you do and who you serve. But break it down because they may want to become an environmental scientist one day. But you're going to have to tell them what that really is all about.
So ultimately, science is everything that we eat, sleep, breathe, where we live. The beauty of science is that it is the physical example of everything from atoms, which make up water molecules, and water molecules is what we drink to hydrate our body. We are made of 70% water, and so we really don't think about the impact of consumption and digestion of what we eat, what we breathe, and how that affects our overall health. But we are a part of the living environment, whether that's you living in an urban community or a rural area. Everything around you is created of this ecosystem known as the environment. We are a part of it and it's a part of us. And so ultimately, one of the biggest things that caught me in regards to becoming a scientist was realizing that everything in our lives is science. Everything in our lives encompasses science. And when it finally struck me that I realized that our living environment, our personal bodies are all science, even atmospherically, that it's all a part of our genetic makeup and that we're not separated from it. And that's what really pivoted for me in identifying this career path in environmental science.
That was much better because, we want to make sure that we appeal to all people. I think sometimes people think we have these fancy degrees, but we can't really explain what it's all about. So I'm glad you broke it down for the folks that might be something that they want to do when they grow up.
And it's so crazy because science is so broad. As you know, from the medical field, it's not just one study of one particular method or practice. Even in the environmental, the biological, the chemical sciences, the mechanical, the engineering sciences, they all have their own universe of niches. And so what it was for me was looking at this big spectrum of the natural resources and understanding where I fit in that. And I just happened to find myself in one small sector after biting down this bigger cookie to get my morsel that actually helped to really identify my space in this industry, which today is still evolving. It's still evolving.
So just from my own understanding, are you going to do something about global warming?
That was a tough question right there. Because what I realized in the fight against climate change, the fight against environmental justice issues is that it's not a one-person battle. We all have a very intricate part in helping to save this planet. And so, I just came back from Alaska. I had a wonderful excursion in Alaska. And the reality hit me is that, again, because we all share this one planet, we all have a social, economic, and environmental responsibility to become better stewards, right? And that means considering running that water. Turn that water off when you're not utilizing it, whether you're taking a shower or a bath. Turn off those lights when you're outside of that room to conserve what you're actually not utilizing, because that's what makes your footprint larger, your carbon footprint larger. And instead of having a carbon footprint, we need to have an eco footprint, which means that we're changing our mindset about it, which I call it the eco consciousness about how we live our lives day to day. And so right now, my main focus is on advocating in regards to being an urban greenie, which is living in a city, living in a community, and doing your parts daily that will help to reduce your carbon footprint to put you on the path towards green.
Wow, that is so deep, and I love it. So I guess because it is recorded now, I must be a better steward of our water at our home, because I am notorious for turning the shower on and walking away and coming back. And so my personal challenge is to do better.
It's just to be conscious of the subconscious things that we don't think about. For example, most people who live in the city don't think about recycling. But as a kid who grew up next to a major landfill, I can smell that stench every day. And so that was what really triggered me to put another passion behind it. Even though I didn't know I was going to end up going down the track of becoming an environmental scientist focused on policy and ecology, that one smell, waking up to that every day, compared to growing up on the north side where I walked down the street to the lakefront, is what really changed my perspectives about the tale of two different cities. And unfortunately, as people of color, we often are in the most vulnerable communities, which ultimately impacts our physical health, our mental health, everything from toxins coming off of transportation from large logistics companies coming into our communities, driving the trucks back and forth, versus actually having a major manufacturer right next to your fresh drinking water, and then wondering why you have cancers or tumors or fibroids, and how that ultimately is a part of your living environment. And one of the things most people of color don't consider is trees. Trees are our natural filtration systems for our air that we breathe, and they are the other forms of oxygen and lungs that this earth actually has to filter out all the toxins. And unfortunately, inside of a lot of urban communities, we call them the concrete jungles because what? The trees got cut down.
Wow.
But if you go to suburbia, they got plenty of trees and they're happier and upbeat. But when you're in the concrete jungle, you feel the suppression of that. Everybody needs to see green. That's another reason. Green brings you a sense of liveliness and excitement.
Well, it does look nice on you, so I'm gonna have to get more green because we look good in all colors.
We do.
Awesome. So I want to ask you a couple of questions. First of all, that background was amazing. I personally learned a lot. I believe in continuous learning and growing, and so I learned a lot about just the environmental space and just really doing my part. Because I think that oftentimes we think that the issue is bigger than us and it doesn't matter what we do. But if we each took one little part, we could just make a huge difference.
Absolutely.
So tell us about a time in your personal life or professional life where you faced a significant challenge.
Oh, wow. I think in every part and phase of my life, I faced a significant challenge. Is that not a part of the evolution of becoming? All the time I find that one of the biggest challenges is stepping into the new of who you are authentically. And prior to the pandemic, I was so used to supporting, cheerleading everybody else on for what they had going on. And I love being that person that people could call. But when my purpose and my passion started revving up inside of my belly, calling me to step out of my comfort zone, I was like struggling with imposter syndrome. And it's no matter how many accolades or, degrees you have on that wall, that this is something that we have had a conversation as we mastermind over the last year about stepping into your authentic self and knowing that you have a message to share with the world. And so even now I find myself cultivating that, supporting that, nurturing that by feeding myself with affirmations, by encouraging others that I have an opportunity to share with. And not only that, but just pouring and learning more. That's really how I've been able to overcome that imposter syndrome to move into this next season.
And community is definitely important. That's how we met. And I honestly believe if it had not been for the community, we probably would not have ever met each other, even though we know a lot of the same people. We are a part of the same sisterhood. Mm-hmm. We probably would not have met. And so community is important.
Yes, absolutely. But everything happens for a reason. I think we would definitely would have met.
Awesome. So how do you stay motivated when you're facing setbacks?
That's a good question as well. When I'm facing setbacks, I think it ultimately boils down to that purpose again. It won't let me quit. My purpose will not let me quit. It pulls on me, it tugs on me, it causes me to think outside of my own box and bubble. But once I allow myself to really think about what it is that is causing me to feel withdrawn from it, I dig a little bit deeper into that instead of running away from it. And I see what the insecurities are or the concerns are, and I address them by, again, supporting them, by nurturing them, by learning something to help me feel more confident in that space. So instead of just withdrawing to the concerns about feeling like I'm a fail because I don't understand or know, I really just pour it back into that to support it, to be able to identify what the root cause of it is so that I can exceed beyond that.
That is powerful. When you talk about pouring into others, I've decided that the next 50 years of my life, as I am on this growth motivator journey, that while I'm continuing to grow and motivate others, I'm also going to pour into myself until my cup is just running over. Because when you spend so much time pouring to everybody else, you tend to lose yourself in the process. And you tend to not realize that you are worthy of all the things that are destined for you to have.
Absolutely. And I think that that was like one of the biggest things about the pandemic was that when the world shut down, I think we all were like asking some really deep-rooted questions about who we were. And some people were struggling with identity for real during the pandemic, and it caused them to go into depressions and anxiety. And others shifted and they went into self-fulfillment and self-care, right? For me, I was working with the National Institute for Environmental Health and Safety in regards to workplace training for COVID-19, as well as supporting our municipalities and our mayors on how to prepare their workspaces for people to start reintegrating back into the spaces. But we were getting over inundated with so much data about all the stats, the deaths, and things of that nature. It took an impact on me emotionally to the point where I had to step away from social media. I had to step away from even watching the news because it was causing me to have this sense of depression and anxiety that kind of instilled a false fear about coming down with COVID, right? So that was at the point where I just made a decision to take some personal time and start gardening. Gardening and knitting again. And so when you're talking about like giving from overflow, that was one of those things for me. Instead of giving from a place of depletion or feeling sad or upset, I would go ahead and I reinvest that energy back to myself so that I can give from a place of overflow for sure.
I love it. You know, you talk about being lost during the pandemic. I believe during the pandemic, I found my voice. I realized that I had been walking in the entrepreneurial space simultaneously while working for a company. And when I made a decision that I was no longer going to be held hostage by salary and benefits, my perspective changed.
Yeah.
And I attribute that to the pandemic. I've always had a growth mindset, but now my mindset is on a whole nother level where I'm not going to allow anyone to distract me from being on that path.
Yeah. It's the perseverance that kicked in. And the funny thing is that I started my company in June of 2019. So I was ready to hit the street running, and then the world shut down. And so Naturally Urban, being a sustainable real estate, energy, and environmental consulting company, one of the hats that I wear is a licensed general contractor, but construction ceased. So I had to pivot so fast when everything ceased. I had to put my educator hat on. And so that was how I was able to persevere during the pandemic. And it also allowed for me to tap into a skill set I didn't even know I had. And so when you talk about, you know, making that decision to reinvest and finding your voice, I had to find mine too. But at that time, I had to become an educator. And on the other side of this, now I'm a commissioner. I'm serving in these different capacities at the state and the county level. I'm still learning about that too. One of those things that I'm growing through is feeling worthy to be inside of some of the rooms that I'm in because I'm the youngest person in there, you know? So when they see me, they don't know my credentials. all they know is I'm like the youngest person in the room just because of the energy that I give off. But that perseverance of my purpose and my passion is what keeps me in that space. And I constantly have to motivate myself to remind myself that I'm supposed to be there. If not, I would never be in that room in the first place.
Oh my gosh. Here, I thought we was just going to be talking about all things green, but there is so much passion in your message. And believe it or not, at 50, even though I don't look 50, I'm often in rooms where people assume like, oh, well, are you a student? Who do you work for? And instead of being in learner mode, they immediately are in judger mode about what they think about me. But then once I open my mouth and start to just share a little snippet about who I am and what I do and who I serve, they're blown away. And I often wonder, do they feel bad about putting their foot in their mouth, or do they just, do they just keep it moving?
They would never tell you that they feel bad. They would never apologize. But again, we don't go in there for their validation either. And that's one of the things, even in my capacity as I wear these different hats as a business owner. When I came out of grad school, I couldn't get a job. So all I know is being a full-time entrepreneur. And that's nearly 12 years to date. So I've been out here hustling, grinding, and taking every hat, every skill set, stacking it upon each other just to be able to be on the other side of the pandemic, successfully running a corporation. But now, like you said, with the environmental, you didn't think the environmental would consider, wearing all these multitude of different hats, whether it's construction. Environmental is in that because we're pushing renewable energy and sustainability, but we also have a lot of policy on the end of that as well, because policy is tied to the resources and the money. And so what I found is that I have a specific gap that I serve in this particular community as an advocate for not only the community persons and just our children, but also to those who are trying to grow wealth in the biggest new green economy, which is about diversity, equity, and inclusion. But they would say we aren't here, we don't exist. As contractors, as trade professionals, as licensed professionals, as educators, to be able to move the Black and brown communities of color into the next century, which is the new green economy. This is like the biggest push next to the Industrial Revolution. And I don't think that a lot of people get it. And so now I'm finding my voice in how I can support that movement forward. And it's kind of strange because nobody's been down this road before who looks like me. So I'm embracing it. I'm excited. I'm trying my best not to be anxious about it, but I'm embracing the journey. It's beautiful.
Well, you definitely are a trailblazer. So I'm excited to see the next 5 years, the next 10 years as we continue to grow together.
Yes.
Because one of the reasons that I wanted to start this platform is I wanted the world to be able to see what growth looks like, how you got there, really motivating them to realize that they can get there too.
Oh, absolutely.
But you got to find your purpose.
Absolutely. It's levels to this. One of the things I was blessed with in that point of the pivot of the pandemic was putting on that educator hat allowed for me to pour into young women and young men who were lost, trying to figure out where their career paths were. And I find that is one of the biggest rewards of this particular season that I'm in is that I'm not only training, educating others, coaching and speaking, but I'm seeing seeds sown into people who are taking likeness of things that I have really begun to fall in love with, especially in renewable energy and advocating for environmental justice issues, and watching them just having candid conversations with them, and then seeing them process their thoughts in regards to their worth, in regards to their ability to give back has been truly the most rewarding part of this whole journey so far.
I love it. No experience left behind, right?
No experience left behind. And I never thought we would actually be using all these different skill sets to just share with our audience, our people, our tribes. It's awesome.
Well, you know what? It's definitely something that was needed. And I think what we're doing is bringing back the old school mentality of it takes a village. It truly, truly does. Mm-hmm. So how do you balance taking risk with being strategic and thoughtful when you're making decisions? How do you balance all of that?
One thing is I have wise counsel. First of all, everything that I'm called into for such a time as this is a God-given gift. That's number one. So my prayer and my worship are essential to me finding harmony in my life. Not only that, the support of my loved ones and my family, and then mentors and coaches have been essential as well for each sector of my life: personal, financial, emotional, and physical. I believe in therapy. I believe in therapy. Therapy is a tool that really helps you to go through each of those phases in your life to get better understanding of where you are, who you are, and how to get additional tools in your toolbox to help you through those challenging seasons, whether it's self-affirming, self-esteem, building up yourself in the highest capacity. Those have been really important tools for me. And not only that, my tribe, my girlfriends, my network have been essential as well, because I don't know everything. And I would be a lie to say I know everything, no matter, again, how much I continue to pull on all these YouTube videos and research from around the world. I don't know everything. So I like keep the smart, intelligent people around me.
Well, you know what? Joe Osteen said it best. If you're the smartest person in your group, you need a bigger group.
Okay. That's a fact.
It is. It is definitely a fact. So tell us about a person who has been a major influence in your life.
I ask myself that question all the time. And it's just so many people who have characteristics, qualities that help me to think about the ideal person of who I'm becoming. So, for example, one moment it was Oprah Winfrey. You know, her power and her impact, her influence, her ability to literally go from nothing to something international and have the impact that she has been phenomenal. Maya Angelou, her words, her inspiration were very important for me to be able to creatively express myself. And her advocacy for communities have been very important. And her voice still to this day still resonates in my ears through poems that I listen to or I read. And it just depends on what season I am in my life. Right now, though, Auntie Michelle Obama with the Black Girl Empowerment Movement right now, because, again, her being a Black girl from the South Side of Chicago just has reminded to me that you can achieve what they call the unachievable. And it's just sometimes just as simple as my sorority sisters at a particular moment where they said, embrace this season of your life. And don't ever allow yourself to be feeling smaller when you actually light up the room when you walk in. Or my own mother and my own sister, who are examples of perseverance in themselves manifested. It's so many people. I don't think it ever is just one person of influence, because I never want to exalt one person over the other, because it's just as simple as having a babysitter who nurtured you and cared for you. They made an impact in your life.
You know what? That's an awesome response, because I think when you hear the question of that one person, when you take a moment to reflect, you realize that it's not just one person that has contributed to your growth as a person. It's a community.
It's a community.
When I was writing my new book, Grow With Me, I spent a lot of time trying to figure out what I was going to write about. I didn't have the title of the book. And I just sat down with a microphone and started recording what I wanted to say, what I wanted the world to experience. And the chapter titles, what I'm sharing, just started to grow organically, to the extent that every time I read it, I feel the power in the message, because I stopped worrying about the mess and focused on the message. And one of my chapters is about the house the Campbells built, because I'm a Campbell, right? And in that chapter, I really talk about my family, who in some shape, form, or fashion has contributed to becoming me. But then a part of that chapter, I talk about my pastor, it's my forever pastor, Bishop Willie James Campbell, and how he was crucial to the house the Campbells built, because he helped me from a spiritual perspective, where when I first became a part of his ministry, I was broken. I was weak. I had completely lost sight of who I was, what I was destined to do. And months after being under his leadership, I remember one day he preached a message about never losing your confidence. Yeah. And when I heard that word, it stuck with me. It sticks with me today, even though he's been gone for a couple of years. In those moments when I'm feeling weak, I'm never going to lose my confidence, because I realize, just like him, my impact is bigger than me.
Absolutely.
And so I think we have covered so much. We could probably spend several hours talking about the Queen of Green. But can you tell our listening, viewing audience how to reach you? Because there may be some folks that need some mentoring, that need your services. So how can they find you?
Oh, absolutely. First of all, thank you so much for having me on today. This is absolutely just speaking to another level of my motivation for stepping out on faith in this particular aspect of just having this conversation candidly, because we don't talk a lot about what motivates us, what keeps us on track. So thank you so much. But again, my name is Victoria Wilson. I am the president and CEO of Naturally Urban Environments Incorporated. I can be reached at area code 708-529-8762 or via email at naturallyurban.green.co@gmail.com. You can find me on all of the social media outlets, including LinkedIn, Facebook, and Instagram, and NUEINC at NUEINC. So that's New Incorporated.
I love how you just so eloquently rattled off your phone number, because you know some folks are old school.
Oh, yeah.
They want to just call you up. Some folks want to go on social media. But I loved hearing about who you are, who you serve. And I know that you are going to serve thousands and for years to come.
Absolutely. First, we start at home, then we make it a part of the global mission. And that's really what I'm focused on, is more of a global mission instead of just thinking about our own backyard. Because what our neighbors do to the north and the south of us impact us, whether that's drinking water, whether that's air quality, whether that's the soil or the food that we eat. Everything is a part of the built environment, has an impact on us as individuals and our future generations, who is my main number one priority. How do I prepare them through education in the STEAM discipline of science, technology, engineering, arts, and mathematics? How do I get our young people who are looking for jobs going to college into the STEAM career fields? Because, you know, with the new technology, they don't know if they're going to have an AI taking their job or if they're going to have to become an engineer, and they don't know about these career paths. And so that's half of the battle. And then the next part is to build green, go green, and save people green.
Well, with that, this is Dr. Lisa L. Campbell, the Growth Motivator. It's been another episode of Growth Motivator Live. And I just want to say this. Are you ready to grow with me?
Yes.